Good morning. It is Tuesday. It is the 14th of October, and our reading is from Luke 6:41. Why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but fail to see the beam of wood in your own? Now, a previous verse to this one says, Judge not lest you be judged. And so many, including unbelievers, will say, see, you're not supposed to judge anyone. And I've actually had believers come to me and say the same kind of thing. But what that passage says is don't have a judgmental attitude. In other words, an attitude of superiority when you judge. And that's what this is the demonstration of in this verse. It says, when you haven't dealt with the sin, your own sins, the redwood tree in your eye, quit worrying about the speck, the sins of somebody else. In other words, we need to deal with our own stuff first. Yes, when we see a brother or sister in the Lord in serious sin, Matthew 18 gives a pattern for how we're to go to them because we care about them. So we certainly can say, what you're doing is not how Christians should behave. We're not called to judge if somebody is saved or not. Oh, if they come right out with statements that make it clear they reject Christ and the gospel, that's fine. They're saying themselves that they're not saved. But if somebody spells out the usual and you hear them knowing the answers, saying they're saved, giving the right descriptions of what it means to be saved, we can't judge their hearts. The only person we know for sure who's saved is ourselves. I can't read your heart. But what we can do is see somebody is not behaving as a Christian should. And that's what this verse is talking about. We need to deal with our own sins. And what's really interesting, and I've seen this over the years, not just in politics, but with people in general, what people accuse us of doing more often than not is exactly what they're doing. And so they're projecting onto us their sins. And really, that's a danger we too have as Christians, which is why David says, search my heart, O Lord, which is why we need to examine ourselves, which is why we need to deal with the redwood tree in our eye before worrying about somebody else's sawdust, is because we don't want to be guilty of projecting our sin onto somebody else. We want the Lord to help us deal with ours, and then in a loving and humble way, when he calls us to do so, come alongside somebody and help them recognize that they are not walking as the Lord calls them to walk, desiring to see them grow in the Lord and deal with the sins in their lives. So if you have a redwood tree hanging out of yours, probably be a good idea to deal with that first before you come after somebody for their sawdust. So risk asking the Lord to search your heart, and I'll see you again tomorrow.